Can I ask, like, do
Sure.
you have any specific project that is like your most memorable one or your most favorite?
We have quite a few. I mean, the first that we worked on was probably one of the most memorable. Like
Oh, the first project.
the first project, just because it was like the first and it was
Mm.
a brothel. So that was like quite out there and being the first as well. Memorable projects. I mean, there's a few. There's a few that's like really interesting, like the ones that we go overseas for,
Mm.
or like there's different sort of categories. Because there's also the ones that like the clients are really good. So and then we like those projects came to actualization really well. So those also quite memorable. So it's like different sort of like I remember them for different reasons. But yeah, I guess the first project is always going to be like a special place in your heart because they were like the clients who like gave your kickstart and then like all of this happened. Yeah, so the first years are always like the most interesting because you do like the weirdest shit.
Experimenting.
Yeah. Oh, foreign country. Where else? Where else do I get inspiration? I like to get inspiration from like very unconventional places or like I won't read an architecture book to get inspiration for architecture, right? So I'll probably like get an idea from a novel that I've read, or like graphic novel. So we do like reading sessions in our office where we like exchange books and we all read different books and like we try to subcategorize them into like different categories. So they were all kind of reading. I mean, they're all different books, but they're all within the same realm. So like graphic novels or like biographies or like, fiction, things like that. So I enjoy those sort of things because I think like reading opens up a lot of, especially reading like not serious books, like really funny books or like thrillers or things like that, gives you a lot of ideas of like how you should experience things, right? And so that's kind of how movies play a very big part. I enjoy like really good movies. I'm very critical of movies. How else do I get inspired by travels? Yeah,
Any
and
type
then
of movie
and it
that
depends.
inspired you?
Sorry.
Any type of movie?
So I like psychological thrillers.
I see a theme going on here.
Yeah. I generally always like to be like at the edge of my seat. I like to be thinking a lot in movies, or I like a good art house where it's like very like the way they shot it. The cinematography is always quite like beautiful or something like that. Like one of my favorites is like Gattaca. I always refer to Gattaca as a lot of
Your go-to.
Yeah, a lot of y'all won't know Gattaca. It's before your time. Uma
Yeah, I
Thurman.
mean, I don't know it, but I will
Yes.
search it later on.
Yes, it's brilliant. So Jude Law, Uma Thurman, Ethan Hawke in this like post-apocalyptic world where everyone's going to leave the planet and we're like breeding perfect humans. So things like that, like really out there. I really enjoy it. And it's shot in this beautiful like film noir sort of setting. Yes, you know Uma Thurman. Good. Yeah, but it really depends on the project. It depends on the brief. Sometimes you get inspired by like the location, like sometimes the building in itself or like where it sits. It's very interesting. Or like the client can be really interesting. We got like really quirky clients sometimes, and that really inspires us. Or they have an interesting product that we get like very inspired to like push. So it really depends. Like there's no formula, right? Yeah. So that's kind of it. Yeah.
So usually does your client give you like the full reign freedom, or would they still have like a lot of details they want?
They depends on the client lah, right? So some clients are like fully trusting and like, go for it, do what you need to do, you're the creative. And those are usually, those are the best. I like those that have like good input as well. Like, because if you're going to run the place, especially if it's like F&B or something like that, you're going to run the place and you should know how the setup should be like. So I like clients who have, constructive criticism or like have a very good input into making it better. We have had clients in the past that are like super controlling.
They want the control of how the space look like.
Not just the control of how the space looks like, but like everything to like how it should be installed, or like what, you know, what sort of like, that's like, we sometimes we really have no say. And those usually come out the worst. It does.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because like that's really no point in getting a creative on board already if you are going to be so controlling. Like you usually allow the creative to have their input, right, and like have their say. So when you control the creative too much, like you control us too much, we become project managers, and then like whatever usually a client has in mind is not really what they want. And very hard to say, but like they have an idea, but it will never, like realistically, never
carry out that way.
Yeah, it cannot. Like you see something on Pinterest, right? Like given Malaysia, like a lot of things cannot be done, you know. So, and we know the know-how of like whether it can and cannot be done, or how it should be done, or whether it will come out how you want it to come out. So yeah, I mean, those are the clients that are like, oh dear.
Yeah, I think those who are early, they can just have a little glimpse of how it is like in the design world.
So challenging.
Yes. Okay, I think we can start
Cool.
now. Welcome everyone to Tauke Talks with Kyle.
Hi.
Hi. Just to recap, Tauke Talks is a session where we look for local businesses or small businesses to share about their motivation, the story behind why they started their business in the first place, and what keeps them going, even during the MCO, the CMCO, and then so on and so forth. So my name is Denise. I will be the host for today, and this sharing session is brought to you by RYSE, a program that equips young people on how to start a business from scratch and even learn entrepreneurship skills on the way. And this is also supported by Citi Foundation fully. And without further ado, I'm happy to welcome Kyle from POW Ideas.
Hi.
The co-founder of POW Ideas. Yes.
Yep.
Thank you so much for being here. How are you today?
It's all good. It's okay. Good weather.
Rainy weather.
Really, it's like really, really hot here. So like very sunny. So good lighting.
Okay, I think just to recap the agenda of what we normally do for Tauke Talks, we want to know more about POW Ideas. Maybe you can tell us a little bit after that.
Sure.
The sharing session will be we have a few questions about his story of his business and so on. The Q&A session is where you guys have a say in this interview. So please share your questions in the chat later, and then we will talk about it.
Yeah.
And lastly, we have a little something that we want to share, which is the online course and the next Tauke Talk session. So without further ado, Kyle, can you share a little bit more about POW Ideas?
Cool. So I'm Kyle. I'm the co-founder of POW Ideas. So basically, POW Ideas is an accident. We are a design consultancy, and we deal with architecture, interior, landscape, product, art. And we don't like to really define what we do. I guess it's one of those things that we do what we're passionate about, right? And so my other co-founder Jun and we are both trained as architects. And Jun used to work in London. I used to work in Australia. And how we started many years ago was that, I mean, we've known each other from college days. I mean, we're both like Taylor's alumni. And yeah, so that's where we started. This was even before there was Taylor's Lakeside. There was Taylor's PJ, which was Taylor's PJ.
The building's still there?
The building's still there. Apparently, it's haunted. So it's if you guys are familiar with Kunya Insurance Building, which is like somewhere along the LDP near the old Motorola. That's where we used to study. So that's how we started. That's how we knew each other. And then we used to build orang asli houses together on the side. And then he went to London, I went to Singapore to work. And then one day after he came back from Australia, he came back from London, he was hanging out in a cafe. And I was in and out of Singapore and KL. So I used to work in Singapore. And then my project was in KL, so I used to do like 1 week in KL, 1 week in Singapore quite often. I was really tired. We were chatting one day, and I was like, let me know if you have anything interesting or stuff. And so he overheard our first project by accident, like eavesdropping on someone in a cafe. And then like just approached them and said that, oh, we're like well-established architects, project. And then he like gives me a call after that. It's like, okay, so there's a brothel project in Petaling Street. Would you like to be on board? And we can do this project together.
Wow.
And then so the brothel project is not, we're not building a brothel. It used to be a brothel,
right.
And what we now know as Merchants Lane. So so it's like it's 100 years old by then. The building was like falling apart. And I had a real interest in like, what is Malaysia? What's Malaysian architecture? And a lot of these sort of questions, right? Like, and so that was our very first project that we met the client, we met, who are a bunch of friends. It was our first time opening a cafe as well. I mean, they've been working in cafes, but they've never owned a cafe before. So it's their first time as well. And since then, it was a really good relationship. They were like, we don't know what to do, so you handle it. I just don't want it to look like any other cafe in KL. And so at that time, it was quite revolutionary to not use black, to not be industrial. And we wanted to embrace this whole like Chinatown culture of like, what is the new Chinatown, right? I mean, bear in mind, this was like 2015. Yeah. So and at that time, like the whole of Petaling Street, there were no cafes, there were no bars. It was very like just foreign workers, like having those like imitation good stalls. And then there are still brothels in that whole street. I mean, there are still like we've come across quite a few of them. And so it was its first, right? And that's how we thought it was really interesting to start this cafe culture in Petaling Street, since it will be the first of its kind. And so so that was our first break. And then I was still working for my previous company, actually. And then I tendered my resignation, and we did some math, and we were like, hey, can survive, right? So, and from that project, we started getting inquiries. Like it became a bit of a buzz because it was super popular. Like Merchants Lane became super, super popular very quickly. And a lot of people were very curious, like who designed it? How did we get about doing it and stuff? And so that led on to like subsequent projects like Inside Scoop and a few other like retail brands. And then one thing led to another, and we are POW Ideas. So,
and 5 years later, you're here.
5 years later, we've got like nearly 100. Oh no, we have more than 100 projects done, which is quite unbelievable. Yeah, and we've done projects overseas. We've organized conferences. We've done like sharing sessions like this. So yeah, we've done a lot of things. So quite unexpected. Let's put it as that.
And your start is really unexpected, like out of a cafe.
Yeah, eavesdropping. So listening on someone else's conversations.
Wow. So did you have to like sit down and really plan it out later, or you just go with the flow with just only you and your co-founder?
Well, initially when it was just Jun and I, it was a lot easier, right? We functioned out of my kitchen. And so it was just so simple, because it was at that time, whatever we make from the project, I'll split it half and half with him. And that's it. We didn't have any overheads. At that time, we were not paying taxes. We were not paying like KWSP. We're not paying SOXO. We had no rental, because it was just like freelance, and we were like, it was just two of us running around town doing whatever we wanted to do. When we one day we sat down. I remember we were sitting down over lunch, and we said that, okay, how serious do we want to take this? And that's where we came out with the name. That's when we came out with the name like POW. And why we even came up with the name POW in the first place was because I needed to put a company name on an invoice. So and they couldn't put like my name on the invoice. They're like, oh, we need an official company. I was like, shit, it means I have to like register ourselves. And so if we register ourselves, then like, should we be more intentional about it? Coincidentally, at that time, we were also offered a space in APW to open our studio. So, and at that time, they had this co-working space called Uppercase, like, which is now changed to Union Space. So back then, it was meant for like co-working space for creatives, and they invited us to come in, and we worked out like a special sweet deal with them. So that's where we started. Yeah, so that's where we started. Since then, we've had really good support from APW, I must say. And that's how, I mean, I guess with the help of all these sort of like individuals around KL, that's how we pushed our business forward. And by having a proper office, that's when we became, okay, we've got to plan this out, right? So I wouldn't say we like set like financial goals or things like that in the initial stages. It was always quite like open-ended, like, okay, it was always a question of who are we and what do we want to do? Not so much on like, how much money do we want to make? Until money became a big, like, you have to deal with it, right? You really have to. And I think as creators, a lot of times we like shy away. How do we, I don't like to deal with money. Like, but you have to. I think that's part of the business part. Is that how you get, and this is, I think, what I learned from my previous bosses and stuff, is that, I mean, as much as they're good designers and they're really talented, number one, they were really good businessmen. They knew how to carve a name out in the industry, and still like keep the business afloat. And I think a lot of creators forget that. There are a lot of times what they talked about, and a lot of times how they project themselves to their business, is always about this branding image of like the projects and the value of the projects that they do. And I think a lot of times they say, oh, sell out and things like that. But if you can't like sustain your business, then there's no point of you to have. That's what I think.
So when you first started, I'm sure there was a few design studios around KL and Malaysia at the same time.
Yeah.
Did you have any plans of how to make yourself a bit different or distinct from other competition?
Well, yeah, at that time, there weren't too many, let's put it as that. I mean, there were, and we knew, it's a small circle, so you kind of know everyone and anyone. It's like a running joke in our office and a few other offices that like, so I used to work for Seksan, the landscape architect in Bangsar, and who owns all the like the Sekeping. So we used to design all the Sekeping retreats that everyone stays at, right? Out of his office, a lot of small offices were birthed. I mean, POW Ideas being one of them. So a lot of my ex-colleagues have their own companies now. So, and then there's a few other firms that kind of had, during that same period, were birthing out, smaller little boutique offices as well. So we always joke about it, like, which lineage do you come from? Who's your real father? Sort of thing. So how we set ourselves different was that, okay, so one of the main things was that, so because I came from a landscape background and architecture, Jun used to work for Tom Dixon in London, who's a lighting and product design, and quite big name internationally. So we then came in as this like, okay, even though we are architects, we're going to handle interior, but we do landscape and product. So so our official company name is actually POW Sendirian Berhad.
Oh wow, is it unofficial?
No, it's like official, like
official.
Yeah, it's like really, if our invoices are like POW Sendirian Berhad. Our branding name is just POW Ideas. So it's the joke that we like really do everything.
That's a very cool story.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I think the other part is that we don't take ourselves too seriously. So like we thought of it and we were like, okay, why POW, right? And like to us, we didn't want to name ourselves like, Jun and Kyle Studio or things like that, because it was so serious, right? And like, and the name to us was like, the branding of it is really important. How do people perceive you, right? And we came out with the name POW because it was a sound. It wasn't even like a real word. But there was a lot of like pop culture references that we could pull from POW, right? Because it was like this, like, can you imagine like you're reading a graphic novel and POW, you get that punch in the face, and literally
that's what I thought.
yeah. So that's how it started. And then we like, okay, let's change it instead of like massive, big, loud and bright to like lowercase and like really like, so it's a soft punch. You get punched in the face, but you're like gentle. So it's like that sort of like, you know, humor that we like to inject into it. So placing ourselves in the industry at the time was not that difficult, because a lot of people we thought were doing at that time very similar sort of aesthetics. Right. So, and the brief at that time for a lot of projects were very similar. They're always like, I want an industrial cafe, I want cement, I want black metal. And we were like, okay, what if we don't do that at all? Like, we will
suggest something new.
Yeah, let's try something new. Let's create this sort of like, and it was very like, what is industrial in Malaysia, and why and we started questioning all these things. Like, were people just following Instagram, Pinterest, you know, and they were just seeing these sort of like, I see someone else do it, therefore I want to do it. And for us, it was like, let's dig deeper into these questions of identity. I think that was how we set ourselves a bit different. And I mean, we're quite proud to see that currently there are a lot more firms coming up, studio creators that are also questioning these sort of like questions of like Malaysian identity, or like, what is your product? And how can Malaysian design be different from like Singapore or Thailand or Indonesia, who regionally are so much stronger, or we perceive them as stronger creatives than us. So what is our voice? I think that was an interesting thing for us to project.
Yeah, it's very important, especially for a business, to be set apart. So you don't want to be like the next design firm that's the same.
Correct. So what is your point of view? I think that's really important. Like, why should someone else hire you rather than? We thought it was very, very important that we don't short sell ourselves. Like, and we've recently had a lot of these conversations with other firms as well, we are quite, you know, close friends with. Like, I don't think people should choose you just because you're cheap. Because I think that is a systemic problem that is always bred in creative industries, like, and a lot of clients, especially like, you know, Chinaman clients, you know, oh, this person give me much cheaper. And if everyone starts cutting their price, slashing their prices, going lower and lower, we are not going to progress the industry to understand that creative work is actually a lot of time and effort. And I think that there is an underappreciation in Asia or Malaysia for that, as opposed to like when you go overseas, you know, running a creative business and charging a certain amount, it's always like understood, right? But over here, they're always like, oh, it's so expensive. And you're like, I studied 7 years.
Yeah, because
7 years.
Worth that money.
7 years. So I told my parents this before as well. So my mom, I mean, she used to like go around and tell her friends like, oh, my son can design your house for you for free. And I got really upset one day, and I told her like, you do know, I mean, you paid for 7 years of my education. And by telling your friends that I can work for them, do their work for free, totally negates all the money that you've paid for my education. Like,
and your value as well.
Correct. So I said that, and I think she understood that when I said that. She was like, oh, okay, yeah, whatever you do, you should get paid for it, because that is the value that you're adding to whatever you're working on. And to say that I can produce a free project just because we're friends, I think that's not really right. Yeah. So and that's one of the things I learned in uni: never do anything for free.
That's a very interesting fact that everyone should know.
Yeah, just never do anything for free. Like, especially
in the art industry.
Yeah, I mean, and we've realized this is a very common trend in a lot of creative businesses, like in fashion and in graphics. They like to do trade-offs, and they're like, oh, if you do this for me, I would do like 5 social media postings for you. And
oh my.
Like, what does that mean? You know, like, is that going to, unless your 5 social media posts can give me like 5,000 ringgit each or something like that, like, I'm not going to pay rent, you know? So we're quite realistic about these sort of things. Like, there are exceptions where sometimes we do like favors, but we always make sure we get it back somehow. So. Yeah.
So do you find more clients now approach you during this time, or do you feel like it's less since they say, oh, actually I cannot afford you, or
Because of the MCO?
yeah, it's because of the NCO.
So definitely it's slowed down. Not going to deny that. So we were quite lucky that a lot of the projects that we were working on prior to the MCO, were going into what we call documentation stage. So we were going into stages where we just sit down and draw. So it was quite good that we had these few weeks to just sit down at home and just nut out drawings, so that, and then work over emails, and the project could still continue without any problems. In terms of like continuation, there's definitely a lot of like companies coming out now and or current projects that are like either scaling down, slowing down, split or phasing things out just to manage their cash flow. And then on the other hand, you also have there are certain projects that just didn't go through because they were like in its infancy, so those didn't happen. In terms of new projects, interestingly enough, there are. So I'm like very thankful. I'm like, sure, yay, new projects. All residential. I don't know why. Well, I kind of know why, but yeah.
Everyone's staying at home now.
Yeah. So that's that. Like, I think everyone's staying at home, and I think when you do like residential projects, it's because you already have the money set aside. Like, you've already like bought the house, and like I already set aside like how many $100,000 that I want to spend on this house. And so this MCO is not really going to affect it because the money's already in the bank, and it's not a business where I have to do like cash flow, payroll, those sort of things. So I can understand why like a lot of residential projects are like, it's the best time to do it. Prices are going to be all-time low. So yeah, residential, I guess that's 2020 POW.
Do you have to like establish any SOPs for you and your team?
A lot. So like they've all received like lectures and like long emails, and it's more of because my team's really small. There's only 6 of us. So that's quite easy to manage. We've rearranged our office. We only go to office like maybe once a week or once in 2 weeks. And we've rearranged the office so that we sit actually quite far from each other. But it's easy because our office has only 6 of us, right? Our SOPs are more for our contractors who are working on site. So if like any of us were to go to a construction site, they have to like fulfill all these requirements that we've set to the contractors. Because we manage the contractors as well. We do from design to completion, right? So when we go to site, there's all these things like we want to make sure we only meet with project managers. There's no more than 10 people working on site at the same time. Make sure everyone is tested, everyone. And so my testing is not just foreign worker, okay? Like my rule was that everyone, like I don't discriminate, but everyone has the risk of getting the virus. So everyone must go test. And then like we won't deal with like the subcontractors. So just to minimize like the number of people we deal with, so we only deal with like one person, or maybe like client and the main contractor, like project manager. Yeah.
So these are for ongoing projects.
This is for ongoing projects. The rest is all online. We try to keep it all online. So it seems to be quite doable at the moment. So.
That's great. It's good to hear how you guys have adapted well so far to the scene.
Yeah.
Okay, I think coming up to my next question would be, I'm sure you started it quite young, like your 20s, right? No? Like, do you think, okay, what about you just graduated? Do you think they should start a business?
I did not start young. I am not young. Thank you. I worked for quite a few years. And I worked in like, before even starting my own firm, I had, how many years is that? Maybe about 10 years of experience already by then. But I started working very, very young. So like, I had the idea that I wanted to be an architect since I was like 10, 11. So when I think I was 16 or 17, during like school holidays, I'll just sit in architects' offices, like my parents' friends or things like that. I'll make sure that I find these sort of like offices that I can just at least like immerse myself in it, right? And like start learning like basic things like how do you print, how do you plot on one A1 size papers, things like that. How do you use like very basic sort of AutoCAD. So it started off really, really like, and they'll give me like, yeah, I started at like 12, like 16 or so. That's when I really got serious about like, okay, I have to learn. So that's when I and so even in like, so college days and like even uni days, college days, I used to work for companies like as an intern every holiday. So I'll take about 2-3 months every year to work for another firm. So I've worked like quite a few different firms. And then, so architecture, how architecture degrees work is that you have your undergrad and then you have your postgrad. So you do 3 years, then, or in my case, I did 4 years because I had a diploma as well. And then in Australia, where I study in Melbourne Uni, you have to work a year. And then only you continue with your master's, right? So in my year out, I did it in Australia as well. So I worked 1 full year. And I continued working during my master's as well with this company, except for my final year where I was like, I just don't have time. So, and then, so I've been working for like a long time. And then when I came back to Malaysia right after that, yeah, I was working for Tixan and then took some time off because I was like, okay, maybe burnt out. So started teaching, built RYSE houses and all these sort of things. And then I started working in Singapore again. So in terms of like, should you start a company straight off the bat? No.
Think properly, is it, before we start?
Yeah. You should know what you're getting yourself into. Jun, on the other hand, didn't work as much. Like he did do, like he worked as interns in different companies. But straight after graduating, we started POW. But by then he had already worked like for a few other like firms, either on a part-time or like short stints. So there is also some sort of that sort of experience already. So then, and the importance of learning, I think, whatever you learn in uni is not what you're going to be practicing. Like, to be absolutely blunt, like
even in architect,
especially in architecture.
Wow.
Especially it's very.
All that years.
Yeah, 7 years. It's very idealistic. I mean, I wrote books and like thesis and like, you know, you come up with all this stuff like theories of like what the world is going to be like, and you have to like create all these designs and stuff. And then when you come into real life, what do you design? You design toilets. So, which is very, very important. It's very difficult and very important.
Yes.
But yeah, so like I would say if you're going to go into like starting a business for a creative, especially, work for someone first, build that sort of understanding of how you're gonna how an office kind of runs and manages, and how you, because how you manage a project, you it's purely, you can never learn that in uni, right? You can only learn that in person, on site, with a real project, with a live project. So that's that. And then build connections. I think that's the other thing that's like quite important, I think, in starting a business, is that connections are really key, the human aspect of it. And you can get far by these connections.
So were there any like specific skills you wish you know when you first started POW Ideas? Like, I wish I can be a better accounting.
I wish I spoke fluent Cantonese.
Oh, wow. So language plays a big part.
Language does play a big part, very, very big part. I mean, I've picked up Hokkien and a bit of Cantonese and very minimal Mandarin. I mean, I grew up speaking Malay at home, so like we speak Malay. So learning like Chinese languages was like very foreign. But it was very important, because that's where you build relationships with your contractors, your builders, and getting your message across was very good. I mean, you don't have to speak Malay, Chinese.
Or
yeah, you don't have to. You can get by. It's just a lot easier if you already do. Yeah, that's one. What else do I wish I learned? I'm pretty okay with numbers, so so I'm okay on the financial side of things. Things that I wish I knew, I learned before I went to start POW Ideas. Um, like learning your value, I think that's very important. Like learning what your input, your worth, and why you're worth that amount. Like I think that's very important to know, rather than just kind of okay lah, can lah. You know, you're like no, you're gonna pay me that much. Otherwise, sorry. So it's okay to say no. Yeah, it's okay to say no. It's perfectly fine to say no to like projects. Just be smart about it. But yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for your insights. Now we're going into the Q&A, is okay?
Okay, sure.
Yeah. I think so far there's, I think we can cover one pre-submitted question. So someone asked, they asked this in the registration form.
Oh, okay.
Someone asked, was there a time where you felt any fear or doubt when you, that your business might not work out when you first started?
MCO. There has been scary times for sure. Cash flow sort of periods. Okay, the MCO wasn't like that scary just because I think this year I've been like very good at doing my financial plannings. So we were like, I mean, we didn't plan for this, but we had the contingency for it. So we were like, but it is still scary, like the thought of like you seeing. Like the thought of seeing a lot of firms around KL closing left, right, and center, shops closing left, right, and center, it does strike fear. It's like shit. What is the longevity of our studio? But I think we weren't that bad, like manageable, still manageable. I think that there was like a few years into POW that we were kind of like, it's usually cash flow issues. It's not like that we weren't getting projects or not getting like a constant workflow. Like it's usually things like either clients don't pay you or clients want to sue you or clients want like you
a lot of crisis management have to be done.
Yeah, and like it's just a lot of ridiculous people out there. So so it's just managing all of that. And then there's also a lot of like just kind of sometimes a lot of people kind of give excuses for like why they're not paying you on time. So you just have to like, I think we've learned how to like manage these sort of things. Like number one, don't charge your invoices like large sums at one go, like break it down into like smaller sums, because that's just a lot easier for everyone rather than here's 1 million ringgit sort of thing, you know. Break it down to like 100 bricks, like so there's things like that, like that we've learned over the years. How do you manage your cash flow? I think that's usually the biggest issue. Project wise, we've never actually gone out to look for projects.
Wow. So everything has been naturally, like organically grown. Yeah,
usually it's either like we get recommended by someone, or like Instagram's a very powerful tool for us. Like a lot of people do approaches on Instagram.
They DM you for a project.
Yeah, they slide into our DMs and tell us like, I want you to design my house. So things like that lah. Recommendations, usually that's quite common, or like just random emails. Like we got one the other day. It's like, oh, I just did a Google search and your name came out first. So we're like, oh, okay, sure.
Wow. Okay, thank you so much. I think that's it for the questions for today. Thank you so much for your insight. I hope everyone felt motivated, inspired in the same way. If you're interested to start your own design firm or any kind of business in the future, I think what really strikes me was how you emphasize on connections, like really establishing a good relationship with any clients or customers you have, and especially values when you first started the business. That will really like anchor your whole company as you go forward.
Yeah, definitely.
So I hope everyone will be able to gain something from this talk. I think if you're interested to maybe start, have a design for your residential home or something, you can go to their DMs in Instagram or even their website just to see their previous projects.
Sure. I mean, and if anyone has like more questions that you didn't get to ask now, you can just like message us and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. Sometimes I like miss out, but like, yeah, we usually quite fast lah. So like website, email, or like Facebook, Instagram. Yeah. you know where to find me.
Yes. Thank you so much for the offer. So everyone, take note of that. Just to recap, this is a session with Tauke Talks, which is brought to you by RYSE and also funded by Citi Foundation. So if your goals is to maybe start a business, or maybe you want to learn step-to-step guide on basic business skills, or real little, very basic short videos of how to start a business, you can go to RYSE Online. We have just started this week. You can sign up using this link, which is bit.ly/RYSE Online, and there you can find more information. And so we also have the next announcement, which is Tauke Talk session number. The next Tauke Talks will be with Iskandar, who has just started his business like 3 weeks ago, which is salted eggs cornflakes. So if you're interested, you also can sign up for this. But it's a session, yeah.
Salted egg cornflakes. Wow.
Yeah, his business has been pretty good. But thank you so much, Kyle. We really enjoyed
No worries.
the insight in the design world.
Cool. No worries. My pleasure.
Thank you so much. And
Thanks.
hope everyone enjoyed it.
Thanks for coming, everyone. Bye.